On this episode of Modern Legends, we discuss some important life lessons regarding neutrality, especially in this complex political climate. My name is Kyle Lam, and today I have Ellerby Wang here, who is going to tell us a story about why impartiality doesn't exist.
Hi Kyle, I'm so glad to be here today. And yeah, I think most people try to stay passive or neutral in a tense situation, but the story we're going to explore today deals with why this doesn't work. So to begin, imagine a powerful king. Let's call him King Dan, who can do anything he wants, basically. He falls in love with a woman named Danica, but the only problem is that she happens to be his brother's wife. So once his brother dies, he decides to take his brother's wife and marries her.
Yikes.
Even though most people would say this is wrong. And in fact, a man named Ben, who is good friends with King Dan, tells him this. And while the king knows this is wrong, he knows by following his advice to end this relationship, he'll make his wife really upset. And she's already mad that King Dan is hanging out with Ben. So eventually the king just throws Ben in jail just to satisfy his wife, even though he still likes him. And sometimes they talk, and the king is always intrigued and challenged by what this wise man has to say to him. However, he keeps his wife and Ben in jail, and he's pretty pleased at how he's handled the situation. But one day he holds a big birthday party in the palace for himself, and he has his stepdaughter, Dana, dance for all of his guests. He and his guests are so charmed by her dance that he promises her in front of everybody that he'll give her anything she wants, even up to half his kingdom. And the first thing she does is run to her mom and ask her what she should get. And her mom tells her to ask for Ben's head on a silver platter. She quickly runs back to the king and requests this head while everyone is still there. And the king feels a lot of distress because he knows that he can't go back on his promise in front of everyone. But he also knows this isn't the right thing to do. In the end, he sends an executioner for Ben's head and presents this to his stepdaughter and wife.
Wow, this is such a shocking story, Ellerby.
Clearly, this is a bit of an extreme example, but it just goes to show that we have to make decisions or else they'll be made for you. And as we look at this, even though the king knows he's wrong, he wants to save face and he's scared of his wife. Most people like and want to hear and do the truth, but dislike when it comes too close or forces them to compromise. Has there ever been a time in your life where you had to make a hard choice?
No, not really.
Okay, it's easy to get caught up in the political climate today and all the hard decisions that you have to make, but a lot of times people just sit down or decide to not talk about politics or not talk about how the world is changing. And a lot of times this affects people negatively. What do you think, Kyle?
I agree. People hold back what their opinions are about politics. They don't choose a side when it comes to talking with their friends or family.
And a lot of times it also goes to popular opinion. What is everyone else thinking? Or how are people going to perceive me if I take up this stance for something that someone may disagree on?
Exactly. Like in the Bay Area, we have a lot of people bandwagon on the liberal democratic side of the spectrum.
That is true. Not to say that's bad, of course, but it is definitely a factor that could potentially sway people to a side.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think should be done about this?
I think people should have a talk together, people on both sides of the spectrum and in the middle, to talk about their political opinions and how they feel about views in society.
And what do you think would come out of that?
I think there'll be more open-mindedness and less closeted opinions. People will be scared of asserting themselves in this world.
Yeah, I think one thing you can learn from this story for sure is just how a lot of times it comes to how everyone is going to view you, right? So if everyone is a lot more open-minded, maybe this would have changed something for the story. Especially because in this situation, the king has so much power that disagreeing with him would make you you could get thrown in jail, you could get beheaded basically for disagreeing with someone. And obviously that wouldn't happen now, but I don't know where I'm going with this or anything.
Yeah, I can see this. In society today, people are thrown into situations where they are stuck.
Another thing I want to point out from this story is that the king is definitely in the wrong, and he knows this. But he decides to go with what everyone else is doing or telling him to do, which is kind of also a part of his downfall. So what do you think we can do to change that? If I told you you were doing something wrong, what would you do?
Bruh. Yes.
I agree. I think he knew he was wrong, but because he abused his power as a king before and after, he decided to behead Ben because he was able to. I think he was also kind of dumb because he also promised something in which he could not fulfill.
And I think as a king, even though he has a lot of power, we are actually very similar in this because we do have the power to make our own decisions,
Yeah, but we choose to let other people and social media and things influence us. Thanks for joining us today on this episode of Modern Legends. We hope to have you back next week,
where we'll talk about more modern legends.
especially during the winter holidays. Thank you.